Romanticism and Romantic Revival. Romanticism, a cultural and artistic movement spanning the late 18th to mid 19th century, encompassed literature, art, music, architecture, criticism, and historiography. It rejected the principles of order, calm, harmony, balance, idealization, and rationality associated with neoclassicism. Romanticism was, in part, a reaction against Enlightenment ideals and embraced individualism, subjectivity, irrationality, imagination, spontaneity, emotion, vision, and the transcendental. Rooted in the German Sturm und Drang movement, which favored intuition and emotion over Enlightenment rationalism, Romanticism was also influenced by the events and ideologies of the French Revolution. Early Romantics were often sympathetic to this cultural revolution. In British literature, key figures of Romanticism include William Wordsworth, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, John Keats, Lord Byron, Percy Bysshe Shelley, William Blake, Walter Scott, Mary Shelley, William Hazlitt, and Charles Lamb. The publication of lyrical ballads in 1798 with poems by Wordsworth and Coleridge is considered the start of the movement. Wordsworth's poems often focused on the lives of the poor and his connection to nature, while Coleridge's The Rime of the Ancient Mariner exemplified the Gothic aspect of English Romanticism. During the early 19th century, the Romantic Revival period in English literature emerged as a revival of the Romantic spirit that had waned after the Elizabethan era. James Thomson's The Season marked a shift, followed by poets like Collins, Gray, Burns, Crabbe, and Cowper, who rebelled against neoclassical traditions. William Blake, with Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience, played a revolutionary role in shaping the Romantic spirit in English poetry. These poets, often called the transition poets, preceded the major Romantic poets and contributed to the evolution of Romanticism in literature. William Blake. William Blake, born in London on November 28, 1757, to James and Catherine Blake, exhibited a unique and visionary nature from a young age. His early experiences included seeing divine visions, such as God appearing at his window at the age of 4 and witnessing a tree filled with angels at 9. Rather than suppress his unconventional tendencies, his parents supported his individualistic development, allowing him to learn to read, write, and express his creativity at home. At age 10, Blake expressed a desire to become a painter, leading his parents to enroll him in a drawing school. 2 years later, he ventured into writing poetry. At 14, he apprenticed as an engraver due to financial constraints. His engraving work included sketching the tombs at Westminster Abbey, which exposed him to various Gothic styles that would later influence his art. Following his apprenticeship, he briefly studied at the Royal Academy. In 1782, Blake married Catherine Bosher, teaching her to read, write, and draw, enabling her to assist in printing his illuminated poetry. Unfortunately, they had no children. In 1784, he attempted to establish a print shop with James Parker, a former apprentice and friend, but the venture failed. Blake sustained a modest living as an engraver and illustrator for books and magazines. He also began instructing his younger brother Robert in art, although Robert fell ill and died in 1787. Blake claimed to have seen Robert's spirit ascend joyfully at his passing and believed it continued to influence him, teaching him the printing method used in his illuminated works. In 1783, Blake published Poetical Sketches, a collection of apprentice verses protesting against war, tyranny, and King George III's treatment of the American colonies. His most renowned collections, Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience, were published in an illustrated format resembling illuminated manuscripts. These works are often interpreted as children's literature but also hold deeper themes. Rejecting 18th century neoclassical conventions, Blake prioritized imagination over reason and critiqued political and religious tyranny. His works like The French Revolution, America, A Prophecy, Visions of the Daughters of Albion, and Europe, A Prophecy, express his opposition to monarchy and tyranny. The Book of Urizen explores theological tyranny, while The Marriage of Heaven and Hell satirizes oppressive authority in church and state. In 1800, Blake moved to Felpham and lived there until 1803 under the patronage of William Haley. He used this time to teach himself various languages to read classical works. These experiences prepared him for his mature works, the visionary epics penned and etched between 1804 and 1820, including Milton, Vala or the Four Zoas, rewritten after and Jerusalem. These works departed from traditional forms and championed the triumph of the human spirit over reason. Blake believed his poetry was accessible to ordinary people but refused to compromise his vision for fame. In 1808, he exhibited watercolors at the Royal Academy, garnering both praise for his artistry and criticism for his perceived insanity. While not widely known among the general public, Blake received recognition from notable figures like Samuel Taylor Coleridge and Wordsworth. His final years were marked by poverty but brightened by the friendship of a group of younger artists known as the Ancients. In 1818, he met John Linnell, a young artist who supported him financially and rekindled interest in his work. Linnell commissioned Blake to illustrate Dante's Divine Comedy, a project Blake worked on until his death in 1827. His notable works include A Vision of the Last Judgment, Auguries of Innocence, Jerusalem, the Emanation of Giant Albion, London, Milton, Songs of Experience and Songs of Innocence, The Everlasting Gospel, the First Book of Urizen, The Tyger, Vala or the Four Zoas, and Visions of the Daughters of Albion. Songs of Innocence and of Experience. William Blake's Songs of Innocence and of Experience is a collection of illustrated poems. It was produced in two stages. The first copies were printed and illuminated by Blake in 1789. 5 years later, he combined these early poems with a set of new ones in a volume titled Songs of Innocence and of Experience, showing the two contrary states of the human soul. Before venturing into poetry, Blake was also a painter, with works like Oberon, Titania, and Puck Dancing with Fairies to his name. Innocence and experience here are terms that redefine consciousness, departing from Milton's existential mythic states of paradise and fall. This collection is often interpreted in the context of a mythical dualism, where innocence symbolizes the unfallen world and experience represents the fallen world. Blake explores various modes of perception that align with a chronology that would become a hallmark of Romanticism. Childhood, for instance, is viewed as a state of protected innocence rather than original sin. However, it's not impervious to the influence of the fallen world, characterized by social and political corruption and the oppression of church, state, and the ruling classes. Songs of Innocence. Songs of Innocence was initially a complete work printed in 1789. It consists of 19 poems accompanied by artwork. This collection predominantly presents a joyful, innocent perspective of pastoral harmony. Yet, it subtly hints at the risks and vulnerabilities inherent in this naivete. Notable poems in this section include The Chimney Sweeper and The Little Black Boy. Songs of Experience. Songs of Experience is a poetry collection containing 26 poems, forming the second part of William Blake's Songs of Innocence and of Experience. These poems were published in 1794. Some of them, like The Little Girl Lost and The Little Girl Found, were originally part of Songs of Innocence, but were later moved between the two books. Songs of Experience delves into darker themes and experiences, addressing social issues, corruption, and oppression with iconic poems like The Tyger and London. The Lamp, The Little Black Boy, and The Chimney Sweeper. The Lamp. The Lamp is a poem by William Blake, featured in his 1789 collection Songs of Innocence. It serves as the counterpart to Blake's The Tyger in Songs of Experience. Central to Blake's philosophy is the juxtaposition of innocence and experience, which he explores throughout his work. This poem, like many of Blake's works, delves into Christian themes. The lamp draws on the symbolism of Jesus Christ as the Lamb of God, a reference found in the Gospel of John and the Book of Revelation. Blake's poem reflects his engagement with Christianity's themes and imagery. The Little Black Boy. The Little Black Boy is a poem by William Blake, included in his 1789 collection Songs of Innocence. This poem emerged during a period when slavery was still legal and the abolitionist movement was gaining momentum. Blake uses the metaphor of the sun to convey his message. References to black bodies and a sunburnt face suggest that black people, through their suffering, may be closer to God as exposure to the sun's rays darkens the skin. In the final stanza, the black boy's willingness to shade the English boy from the heat implies that the English boy with his pale skin is unaccustomed to the warmth associated with the god's love. Some critics interpret the English boy's paleness as symbolic of the distance between the English and God, influenced by their treatment of black people. The Chimney Sweeper. The Chimney Sweeper is the title of a poem by William Blake, published in two parts, first in Songs of Innocence in 1789 and later in Songs of Experience in 1794. This poem sheds light on the grim reality of child labor in late 18th and 19th century England, particularly the practice of employing the young boys to clean chimneys due to their small size. These chimney sweeps endured severe oppression and lived in deplorable conditions, often lacking proper food and clothing. Many lost their lives from accidents, lung damage, and diseases caused by inhaling soot. The first part of the poem recounts a young chimney sweeper's dream in which an angel saves him and his companions from coffins and takes them to a sunny meadow. In the second part, an adult narrator encounters a chimney sweeper boy abandoned in the snow while his parents attend church, symbolizing their spiritual abandonment. This poem starkly portrays the harsh realities faced by these child laborers. The Tyger, London, and a Poison Tree. The Tyger is a renowned poem by English poet William Blake, first published in 1794 as part of his Songs of Experience collection. This poem has been extensively anthologized, studied, and adapted, even in musical compositions. It challenges prevalent Christian religious paradigms of late 18th century England and raises profound questions about God's intentions and motivations in creating both the tiger and the lamb. In The Tyger, Blake explores the duality of beauty and ferocity, emphasizing that understanding one aspect requires an understanding of its counterpart. It's often analyzed alongside its counterpart poem, The Lamb, found in Songs of Innocence, where the lamb highlights innocence. These poems embody the core theme of Blake's philosophy, the contrast between innocence and experience. Blake contends that humanity's struggles arise from the contrasting nature of these concepts, and truth lies in comprehending the contradictions between them. For Blake, experience is not inherently evil, but rather another facet of existence. He challenges the notion of a war between good and evil, or heaven and hell, asserting that individuals must acknowledge and reconcile the contradictions within existence. London. London is a poem by William Blake featured in his 1794 collection Songs of Experience. Unlike many poems in Songs of Experience, London lacks a corresponding piece in Songs of Innocence. Blake, a resident of London, reflects on the city's changing nature. The poem references the two contrary states of the human soul, with Songs of Innocence focused on themes like love, childhood, and nature. Blake's poem captures the oppressive atmosphere of 18th century England, influenced by fears arising from the French Revolution. As the British government imposed restrictive laws, London underwent a transformation from a place Blake once admired for its beauty to one overshadowed by darkness, fear, and misery. The poem serves as a critique of the social conditions and political climate in 18th century England. An acrostic can be found in the third stanza of the poem, spelling out the word here using the first letters of each line. This acrostic underscores the poem's message and adds to its overall impact. A Poison Tree. A Poison Tree is a poem by William Blake, initially published in 1794 as part of his Songs of Experience collection. This poem delves into the narrator's suppressed anger towards an individual, which ultimately leads to a murderous outcome. Themes explored in the poem include indignation, revenge, and the fallen state of humanity. The poem follows a trochaic beat and comprises 4 stanzas. It commences in the first person with a shift in perspective signaled by the word "and" after the first stanza. Notably, the original draft had a line drawn beneath the first stanza, suggesting that Blake initially intended to conclude the poem at the 4th line. Variations between the manuscript and published versions exist, with the original lines 3 and 4 reading differently. A Poison Tree suggests that expressing anger can prevent the desire for vengeance, reflecting the British perspective on anger during the early days of the French Revolution. Revolutionary forces were often associated with anger, and differing viewpoints argued whether anger motivated or clouded reason. Blake and others believed in the importance of expressing anger, but they were cautious about its potential to dominate rather than guide. Poison is a recurring motif in Blake's poetry, symbolizing the corruption or oppressive nature of various forces, including religion, society, and authority. In A Poison Tree, the act of poisoning can be seen as a metaphor for the harmful consequences of harboring anger and resentment, leading to the destruction of relationships and individual integrity.